Hey, good morning, everyone. It's the end of September, and it is time for Mantra Monday. Actually, it is Monday, September 28th, and we are 2 days away from the hot sauce arriving. Woohoo! I'm very, very excited. So, almost ready to launch the store. So for those of you, I'm just going to do some house cleaning here. For those of you who are on my mailing list, please, 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 please open your email. I've got some instructions in there for you. And also, the next email that you're going to be getting from me is going to be from Akayani at akayanimusic.com. So I'm switching email providers. And I'm going to Drip. I'm leaving MailChimp and I'm going to Drip. So you might have to do a confirmation, a double confirmation initially for the first email, maybe. So just a heads up and to look into your spam folder. But yeah, we're getting official and more professional and more fancy and trying to engender better communication with you guys. So you all are awesome. The photo that I posted earlier was taken in Brooklyn, right by Grand Army Plaza in front of the famous Brooklyn Library, which has an absolutely awesome facade to it that looks like it's done in gold, in gilt, and there's, some beautiful historical figures on there, quote, mythological figures on there from Greece and so on, because Greece is, in many ways, for the Western world, considered to be the cradle of learning. Greeks were actually engaged as teachers throughout the old world in Egypt and later on in Rome. And so that's going to make sense in a moment because that is part of the verse that we're talking about today, specifically Alpha and Omega. So Alpha, means the beginning, as in literally the beginning of everything. And Omega, of course, means the end of everything. So summer has come to an end just like that. All right, so let me get into this verse today. The purport is a little bit more complicated. Good morning, Manuel. So nice to see you here. Costa Rica in the house. Yeah. All right. Okay, so the world kind of sucks right now, so that's why I love doing these Mantra Mondays, because it gives a good tone for our week, and also it connects us with our higher self, and transcendental reality and our transcendental origins. Okay, so here we go. This is Bhagavad Gita, text number 32, chapter 10. We are continuing with the opulence of the Absolute. So first I'm going to read the Sanskrit, and then I'm going to do the word-for-word translation, and then I'm going to translate, and then read the purport. Here we go. Sargāṇām ādir antaś madhyam caivāham Arjuna adhyātma-vidyā vidyānām pravadatām aham. Again. Sargāṇām ādir antaś madhyam caivāham Arjuna adhyātma-vidyā vidyānām pravadatām aham. Sargāṇām ādir antaś madhyam caivāham Arjuna adhyātma-vidyā vidyānām pravadatām aham. So the word-for-word translation. Sargāṇām, of all creations. Ādir, the beginning. Antaḥ, end. Ca, and. Madhyam, middle. cha, also, eva, certainly, aham, I am, Arjuna, O Arjuna, adhyātma-vidyā, spiritual knowledge, vidyānām, of all education, vādaḥ, the natural conclusion, pravadatām, of arguments, aham, I am. Translation: of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Purport: among the created manifestations, the first is the creation of the total material elements. As explained before, the cosmic manifestation is created and conducted by Mahā-viṣṇu, Garbhodaka-śāyī Viṣṇu and Kṣīrodaka-śāyī Viṣṇu, and then again it is annihilated by Lord Śiva. Brahmā is the secondary creator. All these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is the beginning, the middle, and the end of all creation. For advanced education, there are various kinds of books of knowledge, such as the 4 Vedas, their 6 supplements, the Vedanta Sutra, books of logic, books of religiosity, or dharma, or ritualistic activity, and the Puranas. So altogether, there are 14 divisions of the books of education. Of these, the book which presents adhyātma-vidyā, spiritual knowledge, in particular, the Vedanta Sutra, represents Krishna. Among logicians, there are different kinds of arguments. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda, but the actual conclusion is called vādaḥ. This conclusive truth is a representation of Krishna. Woo! Wow, okay, super geeky this morning. Yeah, the Vedas are super interesting because there are, as said here, there are 14 divisions to the books of knowledge in the Vedas. And then there are subdivisions also. And I wish that my friend Ravindra Swarup Prabhu were here this morning to expound on this, because he happens to be a PhD in philosophy, and he really understands all the divisions. And yeah, it is very interesting, Manuel. He understands all the divisions, and he can kind of geek out more. He actually is a Sanskrit scholar. I believe he's a Sanskrit scholar, and can do these translations himself. And I had the privilege of being able to hear from him when I was living in the ashram in Philadelphia way back in the 80s, and I always really relished his talks. So he is one of the more learned and scholarly devotees. So one of the things that I remember him talking about, and I would like to get into a little bit more, is this aspect of Vedantic knowledge, which is called jnana. So I think I've touched on it before, in that in the yoga process, yoga is considered to be a ladder that has many rungs. And so there's an ascension, right? There's an ascension, but there are different ways to plug in or to get into yoga, depending on what your propensities are, depending on what your proclivities are. Of course, the gopis are considered to be the highest, the most ecstatic, the closest to Krishna. And the gopis are the cowherd women of Goloka Vrindavan, and in this plane, Vrindavan. And they are not considered to be particularly learned, In other words, they are just full-on devoted. Of course, within the mysticism of Bhakti Yoga, this can also be deceptive or misleading, because actually the gopis are able to expound when they are in an ecstatic trance fully. They are fully self-realized personalities, but speaking from the perspective of our vantage point, they just seem like simple ladies, So my point here is that those that are dedicated to using their minds and intelligence to approach the absolute truth and the supreme, and those who are involved in logic, they are called jnanis or jnani yogis. And so, they are approaching, the Lord in this very kind of intellectual way. And so, sort of what is and what isn't. And it's apparently a pretty vast body of knowledge, or a school, I should say, a school of yoga, where they are logicians. And what's interesting about this verse, I find, and hopefully I'll be able to find out more about it, is that, here in the West, it's we basically fall into two camps when we're making an argument, right? We're defending an argument, we're trying to disprove our opponent. But in Vedanta, it's not good enough, just to know what you're trying to defend and who you're trying to oppose. You actually have to also understand the other person's point of view completely, because it's not considered to be your how shall I say, your defense or your argument is not considered to be complete unless you can completely understand and get inside the thought process and the thinking of the person that you are opposing. So this is very interesting, and actually it's making me think of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Sanskrit scholar and bhakti yogi, who was always very respectful, when he was listening to an opposing view. That, of course, is exemplified in his meeting and his interaction with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, where he listened to Sarvabhauma, like, literally for days, expounding on Mayavadi philosophy, basically trying to explain to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is an incarnation, the devotional avatar of Krishna, why he didn't exist. So you can just imagine, imagine sitting there listening to someone telling you that you don't exist, right? And how that would make you feel. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so humble and just also so confident at the same time, that he was able to listen to this whole sort of logic, and then able to refute it in the language in a way that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could understand, because he was coming from the same place. Okay, so just to repeat this, because it's so beautiful, among logicians there are different kinds of arguments. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda, but the actual conclusion is called a vādaḥ. This conclusive truth is a representation of Krishna. So Krishna says, I am to be known, I am the origin of the Vedas, and I am to be known by the Vedas, so I am the conclusive truth of the Vedas. So this gets back to the beginning of this verse, which says, of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and I'm also the middle. So, again, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. But I'm going to get back to the beginning of this. Whew, I'm going to take a sip of water here. Yeah. Among the created manifestations, the first is the creation of the total material elements. So I actually need to find the 5th canto, which is an explanation of the material creation and the total material elements by Kapila Dev. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to go online and I'm going to see if I can find that volume, because that volume is missing in my collection. But the point of it is, the overall point of it is that there is an explanation of all the different elements that go into making up this world that we live in, and the order in which they are created, and the interaction of all these things. It's actually kind of quite technical and quite geeky, and you have to have patience to be able to listen to it all. In general, most devotees that I've encountered find it to be kind of quite tedious and long, but for someone who has that mindset, it's actually quite interesting, and it's important to have this kind of presentation involved in such a course of study as the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it takes bhakti out of the realm of just sentimentality, right? And it presents the knowledge side of all of this in a scientific way in which people, a good segment of the population can relate to. It's important to present both sides. So as I have spoken about in the past and shown you guys, if you go back through past episodes of Mantra Monday, there are 3 aspects of creation which are embodied in these 3 expansions of Krishna known as Vishnu. Of course, Vishnu again means all-pervading. So the first one again is Mahā-viṣṇu. So Mahā-viṣṇu is that aspect that manifests, goes into a state of yoga nidra, goes into a state of cosmic sleep. And from his breathing, all the universes are manifest. All the universes are manifest. And universes that are in different sizes. The universe that we live in is considered actually to be the smallest. But be that as it may, within each universe, there's another expansion of Vishnu, because God just doesn't leave his creation alone. He comes and lives inside ever creation, and that is his aspect is Garbhodaka-śāyī. Garbhodaka-śāyī, who is lying in the bottom of the causal ocean, and then and laying on also, the ocean of milk. And then there is Kṣīrodaka-śāyī Vishnu, that's another expansion who also lives within the heart of every living entity, also known as Paramatma. So we have this friend, that is coming with us. But within that, there are also other functions within the universe that have to go on. And so here comes the interplay with the desires of the jiva, with the desires of the Lord's children, right, of his expansions. That would be us. Because we are living in these different worlds, and we want to do stuff, right? We came here to fulfill different desires that we had, different material desires. That is the reason, in fact, why the whole material creation was made, was basically to fulfill our desires, outside of a perfectly blissful state that we were living in the spiritual world. And so some of those personalities are Brahmā. So Brahmā is the co-creator of the universe. He is considered to be the grandfather of the universe. And you may remember Lord Brahmā as the person who is a jitta, right? He doesn't have a mother and a father. He is actually born from a lotus flower from the navel of Lord Vishnu, and as such, he is alone. And so he sits in meditation, trying to understand who he is, where he came from, and what the purpose of his life is. Once he does that, and once he makes that reconnection, he is granted those abilities to be able to create so many things, that we take for granted here in this world, to populate the universe, the different species, and also one of his progeny or offspring is Lord Śiva. And Lord Śiva is given that ability to actually destroy the entire creation. When it's time for things to wind up, and when it's time for the living entities who have not liberated themselves from this game that we're playing, to go back into the body of the Lord and to go back into this kind of cosmic sleep until the next rollout, so that people can pick up where they left off, because things go in cycles. So that's the overview of that. But here it says, all these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. So we have a tendency to think that if we're not connected, if we're not aware, we have a tendency to think of, material things, or these, quote, material energies, as to be separated things from the Lord. But that's actually not a fact. The material qualities and the material creation, although inferior in energy, inferior in vibration, I guess you could say, they are still divine. They are Daivi Shakti Gunamayi. They are the divine energies of the Lord. And so, as such, they need to be seen that way. They are agents of. So it's all these are agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. I mean, it can't really be said any more clearly. Are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. There you have it. It's pretty straightforward, and that is why he is the beginning, the middle, and the end. At least in this realm. In this realm, we experience that, We experience the beginning of our life as a child. Most of us don't remember being born. Most of us don't remember ourselves in utero. But, there we have it. We have the conception. We are in utero, we are born, and then we, go through our childhood. So that's the beginning of our life. Then we get to our middle age, right? And then we approach our old age, we approach the end of our life, and then we make that transition of death, quote, the end, or at least the visible end of our lives. And we see that in so many things around us. We go through the seasons and so on and so forth. Or just events, we arrive at the party, there's the middle and the height of the party, and then there's the end of the party where everyone goes home. Or if you're farming and in crops, you certainly see this, things coming from seedling, and then growing and maturing, bearing fruit, and then eventually dwindling and dying. Okay, so I think I've already talked about the 4 Vedas. Let's see if your girl can remember them. This is there's the Rig Veda, there's the Sama Veda, there's the Athura Veda, and of course, as usual, I'm forgetting the 4th one. Hey, good morning, John Cronin. Thank you for all your hearts and all your likes on all the images and stuff from Like Fire. I really appreciate it. Pretty soon you'll be able to get your t-shirt and your hot sauce. So, Okay, so there are the 4 Vedas, there's 6 supplements, and the Vedanta Sutra, the books of logic, the books of religiosity, and the Puranas. So the Puranas are really, they're like the histories, like the Mahā-bharata, is a Purana. They are telling things in stories because people in general need to hear stories. We absorb things very well in stories. But you see here that there's also a breakdown. There's, the books of logic. So for the super geeked out intellectuals, the Brahminical class who can just absorb knowledge in that way, they don't need to hear stories to understand things. They're understanding things, in a different way. Data, logic. And they're able to take that and then they're able to apply that out in the world. Or they're studying different things also. Mathematics, for example, that is also considered to be a Veda. Or they're studying astronomy, or they're studying astrology. They're studying the underpinnings of the universe. They're understanding cosmic law in this way. The functioning of the universe, the functioning of the world. Then there's the books of religiosity. So those are things that are, more ritualistic, that how to conduct different ceremonies and so on and so forth. There you go. That is that. And then, of these, the book which presents adhyātma-vidyā, spiritual knowledge, in particular Vedanta Sutra, represents Krishna. So that would be books like the Srimad Bhagavatam, the book that I referenced earlier, like the 5th canto, for example. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the postgraduate study of the Vedas. It's very, very long. There's many, many books. There's many cantos to it. I believe there's 12 cantos altogether. And each canto, cantare, canto that means song, is divided up into different parts. And each part, sort of has an overarching theme. There's a lot to it, and it can take, years to go through it. Hey, Carl Maverick Niles, good morning. Thank you for being here. I hope you've been enjoying the content, the like fire content. This is Mantra Monday, and this is a day of the week where I just try and give us some upliftment and give us some perspective on where we are in this universe and in life, and to kind of provide us with a little detachment and to be able to see things in a different way so we don't necessarily get sucked into and caught up into all the duality that goes on into this world. So it's nice to have you here. I appreciate it. Okay. So again, this spiritual knowledge is actually a representative of God. And you're saying, yeah, of course it is, but this is a very sweet thing, to have, that this king of knowledge, or Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, that there is an actual scientific process by which we can learn to differentiate ourselves, this mortal coil, the vehicle that we're in, from our true selves, from our soul, from the driver in this vehicle, right? Because of course, when we leave the body, the body goes back to the earth, it goes back to ashes, it ceases to be functioning. And so it's important to understand these things, especially, well, it's always important to understand these things, but especially as we're getting older and we're sort of starting to approach that corridor or that tunnel of what we call death. Because this way we can become fearless. Because not knowing who you are and not knowing where you're going, Prahlad Maharaj explains that to be as the most fearful thing. In general, human beings like to know what's going on. So much more so we should know what's going on, as we approach the end. Because when you don't, it can be very confusing and can be very, very distressing to the living entity, and it can make it difficult for a person to be able to make a transition to their next destination. Of course, here, Mantra Monday is just dedicated to bhakti, yoga in general, and so the ultimate exit point is to get out of this cycle of going around and around and around and around and the cycle of birth and death, and to actually be able to get to a place where we don't have to go through this anymore. After going on this very long and interesting adventure in the material world, and maybe through, different universes and so on and so forth. So, speaking of that, I guess this is a good time to let you know that by the end of October, which is around, Halloween time and Samhain and going into the deep autumn and harvest time, and which is also a mystical time. It's also the time of Días de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, that I'm finally going to be launching my movie experience, which takes you through an experience that I had after I lost my mother and my grandfather within a year and a half, and the means by which I was able to connect with them after they transitioned to the other side. It's a story that has a lot of twists and turns to it, and it's taken me a long time to get it together and get all the ducks in the row to be able to have a one-on-one conversation with you about it. It's delivered in chapters, and you get a chapter a day. You also get music every day. So basically, I'm offering the experience for free, and no chapter is longer than 23 minutes. That's the longest one, because I value your time. But most chapters are under 10 minutes. They range anywhere from under 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and like I said, the very longest one as we approach the end is 23 minutes. So I just want to let you know that I'm going to be offering that movie and album launch experience. It's called Light a Candle in the Darkness, and you just opt in, with your email, and then that's going to set off the trigger, so it's delivered to your inbox, every day. That is going to be coming from Akayani at akayanimusic.com when the time comes. So, I hope that you're all doing well. I'm really appreciative that you're here. I'm going to try and dig into this a little bit more. This verse is really super interesting, and I may revisit some of this information next week before we get into text 33, where actually it's kind of more this Alpha and Omega stuff, like literally, where the Lord explains that he is literally the letter A. And among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators I am Brahmā. Super interesting. Super, super interesting, this chapter. It gets more and more interesting and more deep. We're next week, if I do text 33 next week, it'll be 33. And then we're only going to be 9 verses away to the conclusion of this chapter, text 42. Oh, you're so welcome. Hey, Michael, Disco Mike Park. Hey, man. Nice to see you here this morning. How are you? Yeah. So that is what's up. Yeah, I'm going to dig more into this and see if I can find someone a little bit more geeky than I am, someone a little bit more scholarly than I am, who may be able to offer more information about this, talk about it in a more natural way. Fingers crossed. If not, I think, like I said, I'm just going to try and get a little bit more information here into the different divisions of knowledge and logic, and try and offer you that. So I hope that you have a great rest of your week. The hot sauce again is coming on Wednesday. Super excited. Later on today, I'm literally going to be using my scale. I got a scale to start weighing the packages, so I know, what the shipping costs will be for you guys for the long sleeve t-shirts and the for the long sleeve t-shirts and the hot sauce and the keychains and all of that. So I got boxes from Uline. So if any of you want to order multiple things, it'll come in a little box like this. This is an 8x8 box. There you go. Not too big, not too small. And I also have got these really cool lightweight mailers that are biodegradable. If you're just getting a t-shirt, not just, I don't want to minimize that. It really means a lot. And also later on, when I roll out the private label candles, I partnered with someone really truly awesome to make some Mexican marigold candles. Mexican marigold are traditionally used to call back the ancestors when you're setting up your altar for Dias de los Muertos, because the scent of the candles is thought to help guide them home, so you can have that visit. And of course, a candle is practically universal spiritual technology to make that connection, with the spirit side, with those who are inhabiting their light bodies, to be able to visit and to spend some time together. So I'm very, very excited about that. They are going to be soy and paraffin candles. They're vegan candles. Their burning time is 45 hours. They are hand poured. The lady who makes them is fabulous. And I'm really, 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 really excited about that. I'll also be offering a steep discount on some limited edition t-shirts that I have. And also for the launch of the Like Fire Store Cover Spin merch, I'm going to be offering everyone who's on my mailing list a discount of $5 off for that. So if you're not on my mailing list, you might want to be on my mailing list so you can get that discount for that. I will figure that all out for y'all. I'll make sure that I've got an opt-in for the mailing list as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. I will see you guys very soon. Okay. So if you're on my mailing list, once again, please pay attention. And I sent one yesterday morning. Please open it. I have some important instructions for you. And the next email that you will be getting from me will be from Akaini at akainimusic.com for my new provider, Drip. Okay, y'all. See you later. Bye-bye.